What's good, everybody? This is Robo from Allbark back on another college football video, and today I'm giving you my Week 11 picks. Last week was decent as I got back in the positive, going 32-30 against the spread. A couple bad beats didn't go our way, but still good to get back on the positive side of things. 43-19 picking winners is pretty solid, and the season totals are still looking good on the year. So let's get back into this week and try to add to it. A 3-game action Tuesday slate starts with Ball State at Northern Illinois. Ball State has been playing much better as of late after an awful start to the season. I think they figured out some things after their bye week a few weeks ago, and even on the road, I wouldn't be shocked to see them keep this one close. I like NIU to win this one at home, though, 24-17. In-state rivalry game on a Tuesday this week as Central Michigan heads to Western Michigan. This could be a high-scoring game as neither defense is great by any means, and we should see some decent running games get going here. I think Central's been playing well, but I like Western Michigan at home as a smaller favorite, 28-24. Ohio at Buffalo is the final Tuesday game with Ohio favored by a touchdown. Ohio's the better team in this matchup, but they just have not been able to put up much offensively lately. Buffalo has not been great defensively though, but I like them to keep this within a touchdown. Give me Ohio here, 27-21. Miami, Ohio takes on Akron on Wednesday with a lopsided spread with both teams at opposite ends of the conference. Akron really struggled until late against Kent State last week, and Miami, Ohio has been rolling besides the Toledo game. I think Miami can put up some points here, and they've been rock solid defensively. Give me Miami, 31-10. Bowling Green heads to Kent State for another in-state matchup in the MAC. Kent State just cannot buy a win as they blew a big lead last week to Akron. Bowling Green just played much better football on the year, and even on the road, I can't expect a different outcome. I like the Falcons here, 30-17. Eastern Michigan at Toledo is the last game of the Wednesday slate, and this one's pretty interesting as the spread's way up there. EMU's historically been good as a big underdog, and the opposite goes for Toledo. Daquan Finn is a really good player and should give the Eagles defense some problems, but I like EMU to keep this one inside that number, 31-14. Number 11, Louisville's at home this week taking on Virginia, who had their little run end last week against Georgia Tech. Louisville's a far superior team in this matchup and has the defense to be able to shut down Virginia. Louisville should be able to move the ball with ease on offense, especially if Jamari Thrash is back, so give me the Cards, 37-13. Game 2 on Thursday is Southern Miss at Louisiana. Southern Miss has come alive in recent weeks, hanging with App State and taking down UL Monroe. We don't know what the quarterback situation looks like with Louisiana right now, and Frank Gore Jr. has been on a tear for the Eagles. I think Louisiana wins a closer one, though, 30-21. North Texas at SMU kicks off at 9 p.m. Friday night, but should give us a ton of offense that keeps people watching this one. North Texas hung with some solid teams this season, but the SMU offense has been absolutely lethal. After surviving a scare last week with Rice, I think they can handle this one by a few scores. Give me SMU 45-24. Wyoming at UNLV is a super late kick Friday night starting at 10:45 Eastern, but I'm excited for this game as UNLV continues to win games, and Wyoming's a really tough opponent for them. This one could go down to the wire with a late score taking this game, but I love what I'm seeing out of UNLV offense right now. I've got to take them here by a touchdown, 31-24. The biggest game of the week happens to be the first of the Saturday slate as Big Noon Kickoff picked up number 2 Michigan at number 9 Penn State. Penn State's offense finally came alive last week at Maryland, and they'll need to perform as good as that if they want to score here against Michigan. From what I've heard, the Big Ten may be suspending Jim Harbaugh soon, but Michigan will fight it legally, which would mean that he's likely to be on the sideline this week with a ticked-off group of guys. I think Michigan wins this game as it's not a night game whiteout, and Michigan's been incredible on the road the last few seasons. Give me the Wolverines with a 27-20 final. Number 8, Alabama got a huge win over LSU last week and now hits the road at Kentucky. This could be a trap game for them, but they look hungry as a team right now, and Nick Saban is not a coach who lets his team fall asleep often. Jalen Milroe has been an unstoppable weapon lately, and I think he keeps it rolling this week. Give me Alabama 31-20. Number 19, Kansas is back home against Texas Tech this week after an impressive win on the road avoiding the hangover game against Iowa State. Baron Morton was really good last week for Texas Tech, and he's going to give Kansas a run for their money here. But on a roll and at home, I've got to side with the Jayhawks here. I think they win a high-scoring battle, 34-28. Tulane sits at number 20 in the AP poll and is home this week against a Tulsa team who has been beat up and choked away another game last week to Charlotte. I really question where Tulsa is at mentally after a loss like that in a game they absolutely had to have. They could try to play spoiler or just lay down completely, but regardless, I trust Michael Pratt to take care of business this week. I've got Tulane rolling here, 42-17. Indiana at Illinois grabbed an incredible road win last week with a last-minute drive to take down Minnesota. This week they've got Indiana, who looks like a much different team as they hung with Penn State and took down Wisconsin. Both teams playing pretty solid football, but neither are super trustworthy. The Illinois' defensive line gives me confidence that they'll get the job done. I've got the Illini here, 27-17. Nebraska hosts Maryland this week with both teams on the 5-win mark, badly needing that 6th win to get to bowl eligibility. What an awful collapse it's been for Maryland, who just got absolutely embarrassed the last few weeks. Nebraska's not a great team by any means, but the fans are going to bring it back home this week. Give me the Huskers in a close one, 23-21. Vanderbilt at South Carolina is an ugly SEC matchup between arguably the two worst teams in the conference. South Carolina was on upset alert last week against Jacksonville State and doesn't have much of a right to be favored by 2 scores, even with how bad Vanderbilt's played. I think South Carolina wins this week, but Vanderbilt hangs around 35-24. Virginia Tech at Boston College could be a really good game with Tech entering as slight road favorites. Boston College has been pretty up and down this season, and both quarterbacks have some real playmaking ability in this game. I think this one goes down to the wire regardless, but I'm going to take Thomas Castellanos and Boston College to win at home, 27-24. Clemson picked up a massive win at home last week against Notre Dame, with Dabo saying post-game to buy Clemson stock right now. I don't know if I buy into it though, and I think Clemson really just got up for that Notre Dame rivalry game. Georgia Tech is not the same level opponent, but they've got a lot of offensive talent, especially with Haynes King. I think Tech stays competitive here, but Clemson grabs another home win, 34-23. Temple heads to South Florida this week after looking so much better with E.J. Warner back, throwing for 400 yards against Navy. I think he allows Temple to play their best offense, although the defense is still a big issue. So I don't think they're able to grab a road win here, but I expect them to stay competitive. I've got USF though, 31-27. Liberty comes in at number 25 in the AP poll with an undefeated record as they head into this matchup against Old Dominion. As I've mentioned before, I love what Caden Salter can do for this Liberty offense, and they've got a bunch of explosive players. They should be able to score a bunch again this week, and Old Dominion shouldn't take them by surprise. Give me Liberty 38-20. James Madison is still undefeated and continues to roll through their schedule, and this week they're at home taking on UConn. Unfortunately, they'll be without their elite pass rusher, Jalen Green, for the rest of the season. I think this James Madison defense can still be great without him, and I lean towards them dominating both sides of the ball again here. I've got a 38-10 final score. It's senior day Saturday for the Buffaloes as they take on number 23 Arizona. Arizona's coming off 2 incredibly impressive wins and near upsets at USC and against Washington before it. I like this Arizona team right now, and Noah Fifita has not slowed down. I'm not a huge fan of taking 10 points on the road against Colorado's offense, but I'm not going to bet against Arizona right now with how well they're playing. I've got the Wildcats picking up another win this week, 35-24. NC State at Wake Forest could be a good one, with NC State coming off back-to-back huge wins for the program, taking down Clemson and Miami at home. I liked them last week as it wasn't really a hangover spot as they were taking on another really good opponent, but this week they're on the road and in that type of spot with Wake Forest badly needing a win. I think they'll let Wake hang around too long, and I actually see them stealing this one at home by a field goal, 24-21. Memphis is on the road this week at Charlotte, who's coming off a thrilling road win at Tulsa last week with a game-tying drive and overtime finish. But regardless of that result, I'm not a believer in the Charlotte offense, and I think Memphis is a much better team this season. I like Memphis to handle business on the road this week, 35-21. App State at Georgia State should be a great game with a lot of offense. App State still needs another win to get bowl eligible, but this may be a tough spot. Georgia State coming off back-to-back losses and really tough games for them, so they should be hungry to get back in the win column. I lean towards the Panthers getting back on track this week with a close win at home, 34-31. Troy at Louisiana Monroe could not be a more one-sided matchup, with ULM dropping 7 straight and Troy winning 6 straight. Even at home, ULM has not been good, and the Troy defense has been absolutely suffocating in conference. I have a hard time finding points for ULM in this one. I'm going to take Troy big, 34-10. Kansas State got down big early, but battled back with a huge second half at Texas to send that game into overtime. Baylor, unfortunately, has to see this team hungry coming off that loss and back at home. I think Will Howard and Kansas State gets back to what they were doing before Texas and rolls over Baylor here, 38-17. Sam Houston State finally got their first win of the season last week, although it wasn't against an FBS opponent still. This week they're at Louisiana Tech, which could be an interesting one, but I'm just not going to side with Sam Houston team, who still struggled to get that win last week on their game-winning field goal. I've got Louisiana Tech snapping a 4-game losing streak here with a 30-20 win. Utah State enters a home game against Nevada as huge favorites, and for a reason, as Nevada sits at 2-7 on the year. But outside of the offense, this Utah State team has not been good either, and could allow Nevada to stay in this game for a while. As long as Nevada shows up after their 2-game win streak was snapped, I don't expect Nevada to win this game by any means, but I think they keep it competitive, 34-23. Number 4 Florida State has another chance to make a huge statement to the College Football Playoff Committee as they take on Miami this week at home, and they should be getting Johnny Wilson back alongside Keon Coleman, which will make this offense tough to stop. Tyler Van Dyke has been awful at times this year, but Miami still got some solid talent. I wouldn't be surprised if Florida State won this game easily, but I just can't take them by over 2 touchdowns here against a solid defense. I think they'll win, though, 31-20. Number 13 Utah at number 5 Washington is another game of the week contender, with Utah absolutely exploding offensively last week against Arizona State, behind a really strong defensive performance as well. Washington doesn't have the same type of defense as Oregon, but that offense is just as explosive, if not more. And at home, I think the game will get away from Utah late, as I've got Washington grabbing a 34-21 win. Number 14 Tennessee at number 16 Missouri is another great matchup between 2 solid SEC teams, with Tennessee actually entering as a slight road favorite. I like how Tennessee looked last week, but Missouri was honestly pretty impressive hanging with Georgia, and I think they could be in bounce-back territory back at home here. I like the Tigers' offense to help them grab a 30-27 win at home this week. Number 15, Oklahoma State heads out to UCF, who may be looking to play spoiler as Oklahoma State sits in a letdown spot after the big Bedlam win over Oklahoma. Typically, I would side with the home team in this type of matchup, but Oklahoma State's been so impressive lately, I just don't think UCF will catch them by surprise either. I like the Cowboys here, 35-30. Rutgers at Iowa is by far the lowest total of the week per usual, sitting around 29 right now. With Iowa as slight home favorites, this is a really tough game to pick as I think Rutgers has a really good chance to win this game. But winning at Kinnick is so hard to do, and Iowa's defense should be able to hold Monangai in check. I've got the Hawkeyes grabbing another low-scoring win here, 17-13. FIU at Middle Tennessee State is an ugly matchup with both teams dropping 4 of their last 5 and neither team looking in a positive direction. FIU at least has 4 wins right now, and with an upset win could potentially be going bowling this year. If anything, I think they come fired up and keep this one close, but I've got Middle Tennessee State grabbing the win at home, 28-20. Back to the Big Ten, and we've got Minnesota coming off a heartbreaker last week, hitting the road here at Purdue. Purdue's got a solid defensive line, but outside of that, it's not a great football team as they sit at 2-7. I think Minnesota comes in this game hungry after last week's crushing loss and just outplays Purdue in this game, especially on the ground. I think they take the win here, 24-21. Wisconsin dropped a rough one last week at Indiana, but is back at home here taking on an improved Northwestern team who hung with Iowa last week. I've faded Northwestern all year, and they've done a good job of covering, but I think Wisconsin may be getting Tanner Mordecai back and hopefully Braylon Allen. If they both play, I like Wisconsin this week, 28-14. New Mexico State at Western Kentucky could be a really solid game with Western Kentucky badly needing that 6th win to get to bowl eligible, but they've got a 7-win team coming to town. New Mexico State is a solid group, but I think Western Kentucky has the offensive firepower to hold them off this week. Give me the Hilltoppers by a touchdown, 34-27. Syracuse put up another rough performance last week against Virginia Tech as they've dropped 5 in a row now, but Pitt has been abysmal on the road and was blown out by that same Virginia Tech team earlier in the year. This is a real chance for Syracuse to get back in the win column and potentially reach a bowl game, and I think they get it done this week with an upset win at home, 24-21. UAB at Navy is an ugly matchup with both teams sitting on just 3 wins on the year, and Navy's coming off a demoralizing loss to Temple. But with both teams in similar positions, I don't want to take the road favorite. UAB can score some points, but Navy should be able to get the run game going against a weak defense this week, and I've got them in an upset, 28-24. Coastal Carolina continues to look good without Grayson McCall after grabbing another win on the road last week, but Texas State's coming to town, and they've been impressive this season. I think the McCall injury is still causing some doubt in this Coastal Carolina team, but they've proved to me they can do it, and they're back at home. Give me Coastal 31-24. Auburn at Arkansas is another rough SEC matchup, but with both teams looking better now than a few weeks ago. Arkansas switched back to an up-tempo offense, which helped them take down Florida and Gainesville last week, and I think that it was a really good change as it allows KJ Jefferson to play to his strengths. And for that reason, I'm siding with Arkansas again this week, 30-23 over Auburn. Washington State is back on the road at Cal after 5 straight losses. Just a disastrous stress for the Cougars, who got embarrassed last week against Stanford, putting up to 7 points. The good news for them is that the Cal defense has been just as bad, so I think they'll be able to put up some points this week. But I do think they have a chance to pull off a road upset. I just can't trust it, so I'm going to go with Cal, 34-31. East Carolina fought tough last week against Tulane, and this week will be on the road at FAU. At 1-8, they just haven't been able to get it done despite some closer games, and on the road, I just don't like the spot for them. They've been playing better, but I like the FAU offense enough to side with them here, 30-20. South Alabama gets a home matchup against Arkansas State this week in a game they absolutely have to have for their bowl hopes, and they enter as double-digit favorites against a solid Arkansas State offense. I think this game will end up pretty high scoring, but South Alabama plays inspired enough to grab the close cover, 34-21. Oregon State bounced back last week, taking down Colorado on the road, and could have covered if not for a late score. This week they'll take on Stanford, who just knocked off Washington State, but that just doesn't change my opinion on how Stanford's looked this season. I still think Oregon State wins the trenches battle here and should grab the win easily, 38-14. An absolutely huge SEC matchup this week between number 10 Ole Miss and number 1 Georgia from Athens. As we know, it takes perfection to take down Georgia as they continue to extend that regular season win streak, and this may be their toughest matchup of the season against an incredible Ole Miss offensive attack. Jackson Dart will need to bring his A game on the road, and I think he performs well, but falls just short. I've got the Bulldogs pulling away with a late score in the 4th, winning this one 31-23. Oklahoma will look to get back on track after back-to-back conference losses, and they'll take on West Virginia at home this week. This one should be high scoring as the Oklahoma defense has had some real issues, but West Virginia isn't going to slow down Dylan Gabriel either. I think the Sooners finally bounce back though and win under the lights at home, 38-24. Cincinnati continues to struggle this season, dropping to 2-7 on the year, and now heads down to Houston to take on a team desperately needing another win, sitting at 4-5 on the year. With that motivation factor, as well as a decent atmosphere at night, I think Houston has a strong chance to win this one and pick up win number 5 on the year, 30-24. Georgia Southern at Marshall should be another solid Sun Belt matchup this week. Marshall has to win this one as they're 4-5 and have South Alabama on the road next week. Georgia Southern is a slightly better team in my opinion, and if the game was at home, I'd probably be taking them. but Marshall should come out fired up under the lights and use that energy to their advantage in a close one, 30-28. San Diego State and Colorado State both sit at 3-6 on the year with not much to play for, as bowl hopes are pretty low right now. But with a 2-game stretch the Rams have to close the year, a win here would give them a real shot. I think they've battled in some of their recent losses and should come out hungry for this one, and the SDSU offense is just a nightmare. Give me the Rams 27-20. Number 3 Ohio State took the number 1 spot in the playoff rankings last week, although I think they'll give that back to Georgia tonight after the Missouri win. But the Buckeyes enter this matchup with Michigan State as huge favorites, and the game will probably represent that. MSU has little to no chance in this one, but a spread that big is tough to cover in conference. I think MSU may be able to put together a late scoring drive and a couple stops defensively against McCord, but they'll be out of this one quick. I've got the Buckeyes 38-10. Texas has some hopes of getting Quinn Ewers back this week, as Coach Sarkisian said he's moved to day-to-day, but historically against TCU, this has been a close game, and even if Ewers is good to go, I doubt he'll be at full strength. I think Texas wins this game regardless of who is at quarterback, but TCU is going to give him a fight. Give me the Horns, though, 31-24. LSU took their 3rd loss of the year last week at Alabama, and potentially could be without Jaden Daniels, who suffered a concussion in that game. This week, they'll host Florida, who just looked a mess against Arkansas last week. If Daniels is able to go, I love LSU in this one, but if not, it could potentially get interesting. Regardless, though, give me LSU 38-21. Staying in the SEC, we've got Mississippi State at Texas A&M. I was impressed with A&M last week as they took Ole Miss down to the wire behind a solid game from Max Johnson. For Mississippi State, they were flat out dominated by Kentucky, putting up just 3 points. On the road again in this one, I think they could learn a bit and put up a better fight, but they don't have much of a chance in winning this one. I like A&M 31-17. Rice at UTSA could be one of the best American Conference matchups of the week. UTSA's offense is absolutely rolling, and Rice has looked really sharp, but JT Daniels is questionable for this one with concussion symptoms, which could have a huge impact on how competitive they are here. If he plays, I think Rice can keep it close, but if not, UTSA could blow this one open. I'm taking UTSA 38-24. Duke at North Carolina had a chance to be a really hyped up game this week, but unfortunately a lot of injuries on the Duke side and some unimpressive defensive play from UNC has cost this game a lot of relevance. Still though, it's a huge rivalry game, and you know both teams will bring their A game regardless of who's out there. I think Duke getting that win last week with the 3rd string quarterback bodes well for the rest of the year, although it'll be tough. I don't think they beat Drake May this week, but they may be able to hang around for a while. Give me UNC 31-20. Arizona State at UCLA is a tough spread to predict, as both teams have quarterback situations up in the air, with Ethan Garbers looking terrible and neither backup seizing the job, and Arizona State dealing with injuries to all 3 of their quarterbacks right now. This could be an ugly and sloppy game that ends up more defensive than we think. The UCLA defense should probably dominate, but I don't think they'll score enough to cover. It'll be close though, but I've got UCLA 30-14. Boise State's looked a lot better lately despite a couple of tough losses to Memphis, Colorado State, and Fresno State, and this week they get a layup at home against New Mexico. New Mexico's really struggling this season and just has been handed some huge losses, but this point spread is absolutely massive for a team that likes to run the ball, and New Mexico probably doesn't get shut out. I like Boise here 38-17. Iowa State at BYU is another rough game with a tough quarterback situation. Keaton Slovis gives BYU a chance here in my opinion, but it seems even if he's healthy, he may not start for the Cougars. If he plays, I do like them to hang around, but if not, give me Iowa State 24-17 on the road. USC at Oregon will most likely be our highest scoring matchup of the week, with an elite offensive showdown between Caleb Williams and Bo Nix. Oregon is a pretty big favorite as USC's season hopes are gone, but they have a chance to play spoiler here. Caleb's going to find ways to score points against Oregon's defense here and hang around, but I do not see Oregon being stopped often by USC. Give me Oregon here 42-31. Another huge Mountain West game as Fresno State heads to San Jose State as slight road favorites. I've been a fan of this Fresno State team all year as they've been impressive and pretty resilient. Sitting at 8-1, I like their chance to pick up a tough road win here against a solid San Jose State offense, but it'll need a strong defensive outing to do so. Give me Fresno in a close one, 31-28. As usual, the last game of the week is a Hawaii home game hosting Air Force, who just took a brutal loss last week against Army as they couldn't get anything going offensively. Make no mistake, this Air Force team is still really good, and Hawaii is a much different level of defense than Army in a military university matchup. I think Air Force gets back on track big here, 35-14. That's it for my Week 11 picks. As always, go ahead and let me know down in the comments what your favorite picks of the week are. As always, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.